The envelope sat on my kitchen counter like a ticking bomb. Cream-colored parchment, gold-embossed edges, my name written in perfect calligraphy. I'd been circling it for 20 minutes, coffee gone cold in my hands. I knew what it was before I opened it. The universe has a sick sense of humor that way. "Just throw it away," Rhea had texted when I sent her the photo. "You don't need that toxicity in your life, Penelope." She was right. I should have listened. Instead, I slid my finger under the seal and pulled out the invitation that confirmed my worst fear. "Emma Lynch and Christian Fisher request the honor of your presence." My stomach lurched. The mug slipped from my fingers, shattering against the tile, coffee splashing my bare legs. I barely felt it. 3 years. 3 years since Christian vanished from my life without explanation. 3 years of wondering what I'd done wrong, of piecing myself back together, of finally starting to breathe again. And now this. I sank to the floor, invitation clutched in my trembling hands. Emma, my best friend since college. The woman who held my hair back when I drank too much tequila at 21. Who helped me move into my first real apartment. Who listened to me gush about Christian after our first date. Emma, who apparently was now marrying him. The invitation included a handwritten note in her looping script. "I hope you can make it. Would mean the world to have you there. Love always, M." The casual cruelty of it knocked the wind from my lungs. Was this some kind of sick joke? Or did she genuinely not understand what she was doing? I reached for my phone, scrolling to Emma's contact. 3 years since we'd spoken too. Not since the night Christian disappeared from my life. The timing I'd never questioned until this moment. My thumb hovered over the call button. But what would I even say? "Congratulations on stealing the love of my life. Thanks for the invitation to watch you marry the man I thought I'd spend forever with." Instead, I pulled up Instagram, something I'd avoided doing since our falling out. There they were, Emma's profile filled with photos of them together, hiking in Colorado, kissing in front of the Eiffel Tower, her flashing a diamond ring that could have funded my entire master's program. The caption under the engagement photo: "Sometimes the best things in life take unexpected paths to find you." Soulmates. Not forever Fisher. I hurled my phone across the room. It hit the wall with a crack but didn't break, unlike me. My apartment suddenly felt too small, the walls closing in. I needed air. Grabbing my keys, I stumbled outside into the April evening, not bothering with a jacket despite the chill. 3 blocks later, I found myself at the park where Christian and I had spent countless Sundays, where he'd first told me he loved me while we shared an ice cream cone, where I'd last seen him before he vanished. "He's not worth this," I whispered to myself, but the words rang hollow. Because the truth was, what we had felt real. Soul-deep real. The kind of love people write songs about. Until it wasn't. Until he disappeared. I sat on our bench, watching the sunset paint the sky in mocking shades of romance. That's when the memory surfaced. Something I'd buried so deep, I'd almost convinced myself it never happened. The letter. 2 days after Christian vanished, a plain white envelope appeared under my door. Inside, a hastily scrawled note. "I can't explain now. Trust that this is for the best. Please don't try to find me." See. I'd burned it in my sink that night, watching the paper curl and blacken like my heart. But now, with this wedding invitation mocking me, those words took on new meaning. What if he hadn't left me for the reasons I'd imagined? What if there was more to the story? Back at my apartment, I ignored the shattered mug and spilled coffee. Instead, I went straight to my closet, pulling out the old shoebox where I kept the painful remnants of us I couldn't bear to throw away. Movie ticket stubs, a pressed flower from our first date, photos I'd printed before deleting them from my phone in a fit of post-breakup purging. And there, tucked in the bottom where I'd forgotten it existed, a flash drive. Christian had given it to me for safekeeping weeks before he disappeared. "Just some work stuff," he'd said casually. "Keep it somewhere safe, okay?" I'd never looked at it. Never even thought about it again after he left. Until now. My laptop hummed to life as I plugged in the drive. A single folder appeared, password protected. I tried his birthday. Access denied. His mother's name. Access denied. The date we met. Access denied. Then, on instinct, I typed my own birthday. The folder opened. Inside was a single document titled Truth. My hands shook as I clicked it open, the cursor blinking on the first line like a heartbeat. Penelope, if you're reading this, something has gone very wrong. What I'm about to tell you about Emma will change everything. My heart pounded in my ears as I stared at the screen, the cursor blinking after those first ominous words. The document was dated 3 years ago, just days before Christian disappeared. Emma isn't who you think she is. I've discovered something that I can't ignore, but confronting her directly could be dangerous. I need time to gather proof. If you're reading this, it means I failed. I scrolled through what looked like financial records, emails, and photographs. Most of it made little sense to me. Account numbers, transaction dates, names I didn't recognize. But one thing was clear. Christian had been investigating Emma. The last paragraph hit like a physical blow. I never wanted to leave you, Penelope. If I'm gone, it wasn't by choice. Find Jorge Adams. Tell him I sent you. He'll know what to do. I read it 3 times, my vision blurring. Christian hadn't abandoned me. He'd been trying to protect me from something. From Emma. My phone rang, startling me so badly I knocked over an empty glass. Ria's name flashed on the screen. Did you open it? She asked without preamble. Yes. My voice sounded strange, distant. And? They're getting married in 6 weeks. I couldn't bring myself to mention the flash drive yet. It felt too raw, too unbelievable. That absolute witch! Ria hissed. Want me to come over? We can burn the invitation and drink wine until we pass out. I need to be alone tonight. The lie tasted bitter. What I needed was answers. Call me if you change your mind. Any time, okay? After hanging up, I searched for Jorge Adams online. Several results appeared. A dentist in Phoenix, a high school basketball coach, a LinkedIn profile for a private investigator in our city. Bingo. I sent a message through his website contact form. Christian Fisher told me to find you. We need to talk. Sleep was impossible. I paced my apartment until dawn, my mind racing between disbelief, hope, and rage. By morning, I'd convinced myself I was crazy, that I was seeing connections that weren't there, manufacturing conspiracy theories to avoid the simpler truth. Christian had left me for Emma. Then Jorge called. Ms. Hernandez? His voice was gruff, cautious. I received your message. Where did you get my name? From Christian Fisher. A long pause. When? 3 years ago, before he disappeared. I swallowed hard. Well, not exactly. I just found a file he left me. Another pause. Meet me at Riverside Coffee. 1 hour. Come alone. He hung up before I could respond. Riverside Coffee was a tiny shop tucked away from the main streets, the kind of place you'd never find unless you were looking for it. I arrived 15 minutes early, ordered a latte I couldn't drink, and claimed a corner table. Jorge wasn't what I expected. Middle-aged with salt and pepper hair and kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, he looked more like a high school history teacher than a private investigator. He scanned the cafe before approaching my table. Show me the file, he said, sitting down. I slid my laptop across to him. He reviewed the document, his expression unchanging. Christian hired me 3 years ago, he finally said, closing the laptop. He believed Emma was involved in some kind of financial fraud. Identity theft, money laundering. He'd stumbled onto something while helping her with tax documents. That's impossible, I said automatically. Emma works in marketing. She's not some criminal mastermind. Jorge's smile was sad. People rarely are what they seem, Ms. Hernandez. Did you find anything? We were close. Then Christian missed our meeting, stopped returning calls. I assumed he'd changed his mind about the investigation. He leaned forward. I never believed he'd just walk away. What are you saying? I'm saying people who steal millions don't appreciate being discovered. The implications hit me like a truck. You think Emma did something to him? Oh, I think it's interesting that he disappeared right when we were closing in, And now he's marrying the very person he was investigating. Jorge's eyes narrowed. Don't you? My mind raced. But if she did something to him, why would they be getting married now? That's the question, isn't it? He pulled out a business card. I still have the files from our investigation. If you want to continue where Christian left off, call me. But Ms. Hernandez, his expression turned grave. Be careful. If I'm right about Emma, she's dangerous. And if you start digging, she'll notice. After he left, I sat frozen, coffee growing cold. The Emma I knew baked cookies for homeless shelters and cried during animal rescue commercials. She couldn't be this person Jorge described. But the Emma I knew also wouldn't steal her best friend's boyfriend. I pulled out my phone and stared at the wedding invitation I'd photographed before leaving home. The elegant script, the romantic promises. The date circled in gold, 6 weeks. I had 6 weeks to uncover the truth. My fingers hovered over Jorge's number. This was my chance to walk away, to accept that Christian had made his choice, however painful, and move on with my life. Instead, I pressed call. I'm in, I said when he answered. Tell me everything you know about Emma Lynch. Jorge's office smelled like old books and coffee. Stacks of manila folders covered every surface, and a corkboard on the wall displayed what looked like an investigation in progress. Photos connected by red string, newspaper clippings, handwritten notes. Everything I have on Emma, he said, dropping a thick folder on his desk. Christian paid for 3 weeks of surveillance before he disappeared. I opened it with trembling fingers. Inside were photos of Emma entering office buildings I didn't recognize, meeting with men in expensive suits, driving a car I'd never seen her in. The timestamps showed late nights, early mornings, times when she'd told me she was at yoga or visiting her parents. She operates under at least 3 different names, Jorge explained, pointing to a document with aliases listed. Jennifer Moran, Sarah Winters, and her real name, which isn't Emma Lynch. My head snapped up. What? The real Emma Lynch died 25 years ago in a car accident. Your friend assumed her identity about 10 years ago. He handed me a death certificate. Classic case of identity theft, but sophisticated. She built an entire life on stolen credentials. I felt dizzy. That's not possible. We met in college. I've met her family. Paid actors, most likely. It's more common than you'd think. Jorge's expression softened. I'm sorry, this must be difficult to hear. Difficult didn't begin to cover it. I'd shared everything with Emma, my fears, my dreams, my darkest secrets. We'd stayed up all night talking about our futures, planned trips together, helped each other through breakups and job losses. Had any of it been real? What about her sister Rose? I asked, remembering the quiet, serious girl who occasionally joined us for lunch. Is she fake too? Jorge flipped through his notes. No record of her in my files. Christian never mentioned a sister. She's younger, maybe early 20s, always seemed uncomfortable around Emma. Could be another accomplice, or another victim. He made a note. Worth looking into. I stared at a surveillance photo of Emma laughing with a man I didn't recognize. She looked exactly like the woman I'd known for years. Same smile, same animated hand gestures. How had I missed it? Had there been signs? What was she after? I finally asked. Money? Identity fraud, wire transfers, investment scams. Classic long con artist. She targets wealthy individuals, builds relationships, then drains accounts. Jorge pulled out another file. Christian was investigating a pattern of victims across 3 states. But Christian isn't wealthy, I said. He's an architectural engineer. Comfortable, but not rich. Jorge raised an eyebrow. You sure about that? My certainty wavered. How well had I really known him? We'd dated for just over a year before he vanished. He'd always paid for dinner, lived in a nice apartment, but nothing extravagant. His family, I realized slowly. His parents own that development company in Colorado. He's their only child. Jorge nodded. Fisher Development, worth about $40 million. The room seemed to tilt. I gripped the edge of the desk. So Emma was using me to get to Christian, and now she's marrying him for his money? That was our theory. Jorge leaned back in his chair. But something doesn't add up. If she's marrying him now, where has he been for 3 years? And why send you an invitation? The question had been gnawing at me too. She wants me to see it, I said quietly. She's rubbing it in my face. Or she's sending you a message. Maybe even a cry for help. I looked up sharply. From Christian? Jorge shrugged. Just a theory. We need more information. How do we get it? You need to RSVP yes to that wedding. He held up a hand when I started to protest. It's the perfect opportunity. While you're reconnecting with the happy couple, I'll dig deeper into where Christian's been these past years. The thought of facing them made me physically ill. I can't just pretend everything's normal. You can if you want answers. His tone was gentle but firm. Unless you'd rather walk away now. I thought about Christian's letter. If I'm gone, it wasn't by choice. If there was even a chance he was in trouble, that Emma had somehow forced or manipulated him, I couldn't abandon him. I'll do it, I said, surprising myself with how steady my voice sounded. But I need to know everything about her, no more surprises. Jorge nodded approvingly. We'll start with background research, then move to active surveillance. But Penelope, he fixed me with a serious look. If Emma is who I think she is, she's a professional. One wrong move could alert her. I can handle it. The lie tasted bitter, but I needed to believe it. That night, I sat on my bathroom floor, phone in hand, staring at Emma's contact. My finger hovered over the call button for what felt like hours. What would I say? How would I keep the rage and hurt from my voice? How would I stop myself from demanding answers about Christian? Instead, I opened my laptop and typed a brief email. Emma, what a surprise to hear from you after all this time. Congratulations on your engagement. I'd be happy to attend your wedding. We should catch up before the big day. Coffee soon? Penelope. Before I could overthink it, I hit send. 3 minutes later, my phone chimed with a text. OMG. Pen. So happy you're coming. Yes to coffee. Tomorrow, 2 p.m. at Luminary, just like old times. XOXOM. I stared at the casual, friendly message, my stomach churning. Just like old times. Except nothing would ever be like old times again. Game on, I whispered to my reflection. A stranger with hard eyes looking back at me. Luminary Cafe hadn't changed. Still the same exposed brick walls, hanging plants, and that distinct smell of espresso and cinnamon. Emma and I had spent countless Sunday mornings here, nursing hangovers with oversized lattes and sharing secrets. Now I was here to collect secrets of a different kind. I arrived 20 minutes early, choosing a table with my back to the wall where I could see the entrance. Jorge's instructions echoed in my head. Watch her reactions. Note inconsistencies. Don't reveal what you know. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. I ordered a cappuccino I had no intention of drinking. At exactly 2 hours, she walked in. Emma, or whoever she really was, looked exactly as I remembered. Honey blonde hair, bright blue eyes, that effortless grace that always made heads turn. She wore a simple white sundress and delicate gold jewelry. Nothing about her screamed con artist or identity thief. She spotted me, and her face lit up with what looked like genuine joy. For a second, I almost believed it. Penelope! She rushed over, pulling me into a tight hug before I could prepare myself. The familiar scent of her perfume, vanilla and jasmine, hit me like a physical blow. God, I've missed you. I forced myself to hug her back, to smile as she sat down across from me. It's been a while. Too long. She reached across the table to squeeze my hand. I know things ended, awkwardly between us, but I'm so glad you're coming to the wedding. Awkwardly, as if we'd had some minor disagreement over a borrowed sweater, not her stealing the man I loved. How could I miss it? I kept my voice light. Though I have to admit, your invitation was quite a surprise. Emma's smile faltered slightly. I know. I should have reached out sooner. After Christian and I didn't know how to face you. 3 years is a long time to figure it out. She had the decency to look ashamed. You're right. I was a coward. She twisted a ring on her finger. Not her engagement ring, which I noticed was conspicuously absent. The truth is, it just happened. We never meant to hurt you. The practiced sincerity in her voice made my skin crawl. How many times had she performed this exact routine? How many friends had she betrayed with that same apologetic expression? When did it start? I asked. The question I'd tortured myself with for years. Before or after he left me? Emma hesitated, just long enough that I caught it. After, months after. We ran into each other at a charity event last year. One thing led to another. Lie. According to Jorge's timeline, they'd been connected for at least 3 years, but I nodded as if I believed her. And now you're getting married. That's fast. When you know, you know. She smiled, a private smile that twisted the knife deeper. He's different with me, Pen. More open, more himself. I bit the inside of my cheek until I tasted blood. I'm happy for you both. Really? Hope brightened her eyes. Because having you there would mean everything, to both of us. Is Christian here? I asked, glancing around the cafe. I thought he might come with you. Something flickered across her face. Annoyance? Fear? He's away on business. Shanghai. Some big development project. She leaned forward. But he specifically asked if you'd come. He wants to make peace, too. Another lie. Jorge had confirmed no Christian Fisher had left the country recently. I'd like that, I said. It would be good to see him before the wedding. Clear the air. Emma nodded too quickly. Absolutely. He gets back next week. Maybe dinner? Perfect, I smiled, channeling her own fake warmth back at her. And I'd love to help with any wedding preparations, like old times. Relief visibly washed over her. She launched into details about venues and flowers, her voice animated. I nodded and asked appropriate questions, all while cataloging the inconsistencies in her story. No mention of her sister Rose. No specifics about how Christian proposed. Vague answers about where they lived. Oh! She suddenly exclaimed, checking her watch. I'm late for a dress fitting, but let's get together again soon. Bridesmaids brunch on Saturday? Nothing formal, just a few close friends. I'd love that. The words tasted like ash. She hugged me again before leaving, whispering, I'm so glad we're friends again, Pen. I've missed you. I watched her walk away, my fake smile dropping the instant she was out of sight. My phone buzzed with a text from Jorge. How did it go? She's lying about everything, I replied. Says Christian is in Shanghai. Claims they only got together a year ago. Interesting. I have news too. Meet at my office in an hour? I paid for my untouched coffee and left, my mind racing. Outside, I nearly collided with someone entering the cafe. Sorry, The words died in my throat. Rose. Emma's supposed sister. Up close, I could see she was younger than I remembered. Maybe mid-20s, with the same blonde hair as Emma, but warm brown eyes instead of blue. Penelope? Recognition dawned on her face, followed immediately by panic. What are you doing here? I just had coffee with Emma, Rose paled. She didn't tell me. Why would she? I asked, studying her reaction. Rose glanced over her shoulder nervously. I can't talk here. She might see us. Why would that matter? Because... She stopped herself, conflict clear in her expression. You shouldn't be involved in this. It's not safe. In what, Rose? What's going on? She shook her head, already backing away. Forget you saw me, please. Wait. I reached for her arm, but she pulled away. If you care about Christian at all, she whispered urgently, stop asking questions. She's watching you. Before I could respond, she hurried away, disappearing around the corner. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, her warning echoing in my head. At Jorge's office an hour later, I recounted both conversations. He listened intently, making notes. Well, he said finally, I have something that might explain Rose's warning. He slid a folder across his desk. I found Christian. Inside was a photograph dated 1 week ago. Christian, looking thinner than I remembered, entering a private medical facility outside the city. What is this place? I asked, my heart racing. Lakeside Wellness Center. Jorge's expression was grim. It's not a business hotel or conference center like the sign suggests. It's a secure psychiatric facility. A psychiatric facility? The words felt wrong in my mouth. That can't be right. Jorge tapped the photo. Lakeside specializes in long-term care for patients with severe trauma, memory issues, and dissociative disorders. Very exclusive, very expensive. I stared at Christian's image. He wore jeans and a sweater, normal clothes, not a hospital gown, but something about his posture seemed off, diminished somehow. Is he a patient? Records show he was admitted 3 years ago, right after he disappeared. Jorge's voice softened. Monthly payments come from a trust in his name. The billing contact is Emma Lynch. The room tilted. I gripped the edge of the desk to steady myself. She's keeping him there? Against his will? That's what we need to find out. Jorge leaned forward. These places have legitimate patients, but they're also convenient for storing people you want to keep quiet. My mind raced through possibilities, each more horrifying than the last. We need to get him out. Not so fast. We don't know his condition or why he's there. If he's genuinely ill, he's not. The certainty in my voice surprised even me. Christian was fine before he disappeared. This is Emma's doing. Jorge studied me carefully. There's only one way to know for sure. Someone needs to get inside. I'll go. The words came automatically. It's not that simple. Lakeside has tight security. Visitors are screened, appointments verified. You can't just walk in. I thought of Rose's warning. If you care about Christian at all, stop asking questions. She knew. She had to know what Emma had done. The bridesmaids' brunch, I said slowly. Emma invited me for Saturday. She'll be occupied for hours. Jorge nodded, following my logic. Giving you a window to visit Lakeside. I'll need a cover story. Leave that to me. He pulled out his phone. I know someone who works there. Might be able to get you in as a consultant. 2 days later, I stood in Lakeside's elegant lobby, heart hammering against my ribs. The facility looked more like a luxury resort than a hospital. Plush carpets, tasteful artwork, staff in business casual attire instead of scrubs. My visitor badge read, Dr. Penelope Hernandez, Art Therapy Assessment. Jorge's contact had come through, arranging a temporary consulting cover that would get me access to the residential wing. Dr. Hernandez. A woman in a charcoal pantsuit approached, hand extended. I'm Director Winters. Thank you for coming on such short notice. I shook her hand, praying she couldn't feel mine trembling. Happy to help. Your credentials are impressive. She smiled professionally. We're always looking to expand our therapeutic offerings. I nodded, clutching the portfolio Jorge had prepared. Inside were legitimate art therapy materials and a fake resume that would withstand casual scrutiny. I'd like to observe some of your current programs first, I said, following the script Jorge had drilled into me. Get a sense of your patient's needs. Of course. Melissa will show you around. She gestured to a younger woman waiting nearby. Feel free to interact with any patients in the common areas. Just remember our confidentiality policies. As Director Winters walked away, I exhaled slowly. First hurdle cleared. Melissa led me through secured doors into a bright, open space that resembled an upscale community center. Patients in regular clothes read books, played board games, or worked on art projects. Some chatted with staff, while others sat alone, lost in their own worlds. Most of our residents have scheduled activities until lunch, Melissa explained. After that, they have free time in the common areas or can return to their rooms. I scanned the room, trying not to look as desperate as I felt. No sign of Christian. Do you mind if I observe the art room first? I asked, remembering that Christian had enjoyed sketching. The art therapy room was sunny and well-equipped. 4 patients worked quietly at tables, but none was Christian. My disappointment must have shown. Looking for someone specific? Melissa asked, too perceptive. Just getting a feel for the space, I lied. Mind if I look at some of the work your patients have produced? It helps me assess skill levels. She nodded toward a storage cabinet. Recent projects are filed there. Help yourself. I need to check on something. Back in 5. The moment she left, I abandoned the cabinet and moved to the window overlooking a garden courtyard. And there he was. Christian sat alone on a bench, sketching pad in hand, sunlight catching in his dark hair. My breath caught painfully in my chest. He looked thinner, his posture slightly hunched, but unmistakably him. Without thinking, I slipped out the side door into the garden. Christian! My voice cracked on his name. He looked up, his expression blank, no recognition, no surprise, nothing. Do I know you? He asked politely. The ground seemed to drop from beneath me. It's me, Penelope. He frowned slightly, studying my face. I'm sorry. I have trouble with faces sometimes. We were together for a year, before you disappeared. I stepped closer, searching his eyes for any flicker of the man I'd known. You left me a letter, about Emma. At Emma's name, something changed in his expression, a flash of fear quickly suppressed. I think you have me confused with someone else, he said, his voice carefully neutral. My fiancé's name is Emma, but we've been together for years. That's not true. I knelt beside him, keeping my voice low. Something happened to you 3 years ago. Emma did something. You need to leave. His tone hardened, but I caught the tremor beneath it. Now! Christian, please! Is everything all right here? Melissa appeared at the garden entrance, her friendly demeanor replaced with professional concern. Christian stood abruptly. This woman is bothering me. She thinks she knows me. I'm so sorry, Melissa said, moving between us. Dr. Hernandez, perhaps we should continue the tour elsewhere. As she led me away, I glanced back. Christian had returned to his sketch, but his hand shook visibly, and on his pad, I glimpsed what he'd been drawing. A woman's face. My face. He recognized you. Jorge paced his office, energized by my report. The drawing proves it. I sat motionless, still processing the hollow look in Christian's eyes. But he denied it. He seemed genuinely confused. Or genuinely afraid. Jorge stopped pacing. Memory manipulation is real, Penelope. Gaslighting, medication, isolation. The right combination can make someone question their own reality. My stomach turned. You think Emma's been, what? Brainwashing him? I think she needs him compliant. His family money is only accessible with his cooperation. Jorge tapped his computer screen. Fisher Development requires his signature on major transactions. Even with power of attorney, Emma would face limitations. So she's keeping him drugged and confused while she siphons his inheritance. The words tasted bitter. And now she's rushing a wedding to gain legal control. It fits the pattern. Jorge pulled up a document. I found 3 previous victims with similar stories. Wealthy individuals who suffered mental breakdowns after meeting Emma. All lost significant assets before recovering, with no memory of authorizing the transfers. I thought of Christian's fearful reaction at Emma's name, the careful way he'd said, my fiancé, as if reciting a line. We need to get him out. And we will. Jorge's expression hardened. But we need proof first, something concrete enough for the authorities. I can't wait for that. I stood, suddenly resolute. The bridesmaids' brunch is tomorrow. Emma will be occupied for hours. I'm going back to Lakeside. They won't let you in again, not after today. Then I'll find another way. Jorge studied me, concern evident in his eyes. This is getting dangerous, Penelope. Emma isn't just a con artist. She's destroyed lives. If she realizes what you know, I don't care. The intensity of my own voice surprised me. I left him there once. I won't do it again. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Christian's blank expression, his trembling hands, the sketch of my face that his conscious mind didn't recognize, but his heart somehow remembered. My phone buzzed at 2 a.m. Unknown number. Meet me, Riverside Park. The bench near the fountain. Now, come alone. R. Rose. It had to be. Every instinct screamed that this was a trap, but I was already pulling on jeans and a sweater. I texted Jorge the details as I slipped out the door. At least someone would know where to look if I disappeared. The park was deserted and eerily quiet, moonlight casting long shadows across the paths. I approached our old bench cautiously, scanning for any movement. Rose emerged from behind a tree, glancing nervously over her shoulder. She wore dark clothes and a baseball cap pulled low over her face. "You shouldn't have come to Lakeside," she hissed when I reached her. "Emma knows. She has people there." Ice spread through my veins. "How do you know about that?" "Because I've been watching you." She sat on the bench, hands fidgeting. "And because I've been trying to help Christian too." I remained standing, maintaining distance. "Who are you, really? You're not Emma's sister." "No." She pulled off her cap, running a hand through her short blonde hair. "I'm Rose Rogers, the real Rose Rogers. Emma stole my identity 3 years ago, but she didn't know I had a twin brother." The pieces clicked together. "Your brother was one of her victims." Rose nodded, eyes glistening. "Ryan. He met her at a charity gala. 6 months later, he was diagnosed with paranoid delusions, transferred all his assets to a business partner, and disappeared." Her voice cracked. "By the time I tracked him down, he barely recognized me. He died last year." "I'm sorry." I sat beside her, my suspicion giving way to shared grief. "Emma doesn't know I found out. I've been working at her favorite salon, watching her, gathering evidence." Rose's expression hardened. "When I realized she was targeting Christian, I tried to warn him. Too late." "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because she's accelerating her timeline. The wedding's been moved up to next weekend." "What?" My heart lurched. "She told me 6 weeks. She lied. After your visit to Lakeside, she's rushing everything." Rose pulled out her phone, showing me a text from Emma about urgent wedding preparations. "Once they're married, she'll have legal control over everything. And Christian." She didn't need to finish. We both knew what would happen to him. "I have a plan," Rose said, lowering her voice further. "But I need your help." "What kind of plan?" "Tomorrow at the brunch, Emma will be showing off her engagement ring to everyone. It's new, specially designed." Rose's eyes met mine. "She keeps it in a jewelry box on her dresser when she showers." Understanding dawned. "You want me to break into her house during the brunch?" "Her home office has evidence, documents, contracts, medication schedules for Christian, everything we need to prove what she's doing." Rose pressed a key into my palm. "This opens the back door. Security code is 0517. My fingers closed around the key. "Why should I trust you?" "Because we both want the same thing." Her eyes held mine. "To save Christian before it's too late." After Rose left, I sat alone in the moonlight, turning the key over in my hands. This could be another trap. Rose could be working with Emma, leading me into a situation that would discredit me, or worse. But the fear in Christian's eyes when I mentioned Emma's name had been real. The drawing of my face had been real. My phone buzzed with a text from Emma. "Can't wait to see you at brunch tomorrow. 11 a.m. sharp, so much to celebrate. XOXO. I stared at her cheerful message, rage building in my chest. 3 years of Christian's life stolen. His mind manipulated, his freedom taken. All while she paraded around planning a wedding. I texted Jorge. "Change of plans. I need you to create a distraction at Lakeside tomorrow. I'm going after the evidence." His response came immediately. "Too dangerous. We need to think this through." But there was no more time for thinking. I pocketed Rose's key, my decision made. "I'm doing this with or without you," I replied. "But I'd rather have backup." Emma's house was exactly what I expected. A pristine colonial in an exclusive neighborhood, with manicured gardens and a 3-car garage. The kind of place that screamed old money, though I now knew every inch of it was purchased with stolen lives. I parked 2 blocks away and walked. dressed in the floral sundress and wide-brimmed hat I'd chosen for brunch. To any neighbors glancing out their windows, I'd look like just another guest arriving early. Jorge's reluctant text came as I approached the back gate. Distraction set for 11:30. You'll have 20 minutes max before security protocols reset. Be careful. The key Rose had given me slid perfectly into the back door lock. Inside, the house was silent and cool, smelling of fresh flowers and expensive candles. I punched in the security code with trembling fingers. 0517. The system beeped once and disarmed. I moved quickly through the kitchen toward the stairs, my heels clicking against marble floors. Family photos lined the staircase wall. Emma with an older couple I assumed were her fake parents. Emma at college graduation. Emma and Christian looking happy at some mountain retreat. The sight of his arm around her made my stomach turn. The master bedroom was at the end of the upstairs hallway, a massive space with vaulted ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a private garden. The king-sized bed was perfectly made, decorative pillows arranged with mathematical precision. On the dresser sat a small velvet jewelry box, just as Rose had described. I flipped it open to find an enormous diamond ring nestled inside, the engagement ring Emma had conspicuously not been wearing during our coffee meeting. The home office adjoined the bedroom through French doors. Unlike the rest of the house's airy, neutral palette, this room was dark. Mahogany furniture, heavy curtains, walls lined with leather-bound books that looked untouched. I went straight for the desk, trying drawers until I found one locked. Using a bobby pin from my hair, a trick Jorge had insisted I learn, I managed to jimmy it open after several tense attempts. Inside was a folder labeled CF Treatment Protocol. My hands shook as I opened it. Inside were medical reports, prescription orders, and a detailed schedule of medications, antipsychotics, sedatives, memory suppressants. Notes in Emma's handwriting detailed Christian's progress. Week 12. Still asking about P. Increased dosage. Month 6. Confusion episodes decreasing. Accepting revised history. Year 2. Breakthrough incident after seeing news about father's company. Isolated for 72 hours. Bile rose in my throat. She'd been systematically erasing his mind, replacing his memories with her own version of reality. Deeper in the drawer, I found financial documents, transfers from Christian's accounts to offshore holdings, forged authorizations, paperwork for the upcoming wedding that would give Emma control over his entire estate. And at the very bottom, a small velvet pouch. Inside was a silver chain with a pendant, a tiny architectural compass I'd given Christian on our first anniversary. He'd promised never to take it off. The sound of a car engine outside jolted me back to reality. I glanced at my watch. 11:20. The brunch wasn't supposed to end until 2 snug. Frantically, I used my phone to photograph every document, every note, every prescription order. I shoved the necklace into my pocket and was carefully replacing the files when I heard the front door open. "Hello?" Emma's voice called from downstairs. "Is someone here?" I froze, heart hammering so loudly, I was certain she could hear it. The distraction at Lakeside must have failed, or worse, tipped her off. Footsteps on the stairs. Coming closer. I slipped into the walk-in closet just as Emma entered the bedroom, leaving the door cracked enough to see through. She moved directly to the jewelry box, checking her engagement ring. Then she pulled out her phone. "It's me," she said to someone on the other end. "She didn't show at the brunch. I think she knows." A pause. "No, the wedding happens tomorrow, no matter what. Have the papers ready." Another pause. "If she becomes a problem, handle it, like we discussed." My blood turned to ice. There was no mistaking her meaning. Emma disappeared into the bathroom. I heard the shower start, my chance to escape. I crept from the closet, moving silently toward the hallway. At the bedroom door, I glanced back. The jewelry box sat open on the dresser, the massive diamond glinting in the sunlight. In that moment, something inside me snapped. 3 years of Christian's life. His memories, our love, all stolen by this woman who thought she could simply take whatever she wanted without consequences. Before I could reconsider, I grabbed the ring and slipped it into my pocket alongside the necklace. I made it downstairs and to the back door when Emma's voice froze me in place. "Leaving so soon, Penelope?" She stood at the bottom of the stairs in a silk robe, hair still dry, phone in hand. The shower had been a ruse. "I was just looking for the brunch," I said, attempting a confused smile. "The door was open." "Save it." Her voice was different now, harder, colder, her cultivated warmth completely gone. "We both know why you're here." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Don't insult me." She stepped closer, blocking my path to the door. "You visited Christian at Lakeside. You've been meeting with Rose. Did you really think I wouldn't know?" My mind raced. If I could just get past her to the door. "He remembers me," I said, watching her reaction carefully. "Your conditioning is failing." A flicker of uncertainty crossed her face. "You're lying." He drew my portrait. From memory. I pulled out my phone, showing her the photo I'd secretly taken of Christian's sketch. "It's over, Emma. I have everything. The medical records, the financial documents, the evidence of what you've done to him." Her expression hardened. "And who's going to believe you? The bitter ex-girlfriend breaking into my home, stealing my property?" She gestured to the bulge in my pocket where her ring sat. "I've already called the police." As if on cue, sirens wailed in the distance. "You won't get away with this," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "I already have." She smiled coldly. "3 times before Christian. And after they take you away for breaking and entering, I'll make sure you're remembered as the unstable woman who couldn't accept that he chose me." The sirens grew louder, seconds away now. "He never chose you," I said, my hand closing around the compass pendant in my pocket. "And I'm not leaving without him." Emma laughed. "He's not even here. He's safely locked away where you'll never—" The back door burst open behind me. Emma's eyes widened in shock. I turned to see Christian standing in the doorway, his face pale, but his eyes clear and focused. Behind him stood Jorge and Rose. "Actually," Christian said, his voice hoarse but strong, "I'm exactly where I need to be." Emma's composure shattered. "Christian, how did you—" Her gaze darted between him and the approaching sirens. "Baby, these people are manipulating you. You're not well." Christian stepped into the house, his movements careful but deliberate. "Stop. Just stop." I couldn't take my eyes off him. The vacant confusion I'd seen at Lakeside was gone, replaced by a focused intensity I remembered well. "Jorge got me out," he explained, sensing my unasked question. "Rose created a distraction while you were breaking in here." Emma's face contorted with rage as she looked at Rose. I should have known." "You should have," Rose agreed coldly. "You killed my brother." Emma lunged for her purse on the entryway table. Jorge moved faster, blocking her path. "The police are coming," Emma hissed, backing away. "I'll tell them you all broke in, attacked me. They'll believe me. They always do." "Not this time." I pulled out my phone, showing her the screen. "I've been recording since I entered your house. Every word you've said is documented." Her eyes widened. "You're bluffing." "The medical records you kept on drugging Christian? I sent them to his family lawyer." I stepped closer, emboldened by the fear creeping into her expression. "The financial documents showing how you've been stealing his inheritance? Already forwarded to the FBI's Financial Crimes Division." "You can't prove anything," she insisted, but uncertainty had replaced her confidence. "Actually, she can." Christian's voice was quiet but firm. "Because I remember everything now." Emma paled. "That's impossible. The medications wore off faster than you expected." He touched the back of his head, where a small bandage was visible. "Your friends at Lakeside kept me drugged, but they couldn't erase what happened. Just buried it." The sirens stopped outside the house. Car doors slammed. "It's over, Emma," I said. For a moment, she seemed to deflate, defeat washing over her features. Then, with startling speed, she lunged toward the kitchen, grabbing a knife from the block on the counter. Nobody moves, she shouted, brandishing the blade. I'm walking out of here. Anyone tries to stop me, I'll make sure they regret it. Jorge shifted protectively toward Rose. Christian tensed beside me. The front doorbell rang. The police. Emma backed toward the rear exit, knife extended. Christian, come with me. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix, he said, his voice sad but resolute. It was all a lie. Not all of it. Something vulnerable flickered across her face. I did love you, in my way. Your way destroyed me. Christian stood his ground. You erased 3 years of my life. Emma's gaze hardened again. I gave you a better life than she ever could. She gestured toward me with the knife. She was holding you back. I set you free. You imprisoned me, Christian corrected quietly. There's a difference. The doorbell rang again, more insistent. Emma's eyes darted frantically between us and the door. This isn't over, she warned, backing toward the kitchen door that led to the garage. None of you will be safe. I'll make sure. I stepped forward, directly into her path. Enough! Emma raised the knife. Move! No. My voice was steady, my fear replaced by a cold clarity. You've taken enough from us. You don't get to walk away. I'll hurt you, she threatened, knife trembling in her hand. You already did. I met her gaze unflinchingly. Your worst already happened. You took him from me. You stole years we can never get back. You made me doubt everything I believed about love. Something shifted in her eyes. Recognition, perhaps, that the weapon in her hand was nothing compared to the damage she'd already inflicted. But you failed, I continued, taking another step toward her. Because I'm still standing. He's still here. And you're the one who's about to lose everything. The front door burst open as police officers entered, shouting commands. Emma's face contorted with desperate rage. She lunged forward, knife aimed at my chest. I was ready. Sidestepping the blade, I grabbed her wrist with both hands, twisting sharply the way Jorge had taught me. The knife clattered to the floor as Emma cried out in pain. The police swarmed in, securing Emma as she screamed accusations that grew increasingly incoherent. As they led her away, she locked eyes with me one last time. You think this is justice? She spat. You're just like me, breaking into my home, stealing what's mine. I reached into my pocket and pulled out her engagement ring, holding it up to the light. The difference is, I'm giving this back. I placed it on the table. I don't need what isn't mine. After the police took our statements, the house fell quiet. Jorge and Rose stepped outside to give us privacy, leaving Christian and me alone in the kitchen where it had all ended. I don't know where to start, he said, his voice rough with emotion. 3 years. We don't have to figure it all out today. I kept a careful distance, uncertain of what he needed. He nodded, running a hand through his hair, a gesture so achingly familiar it made my chest hurt. When did you start remembering? I asked. Bits and pieces for months, nothing that made sense. He met my eyes. Then you showed up at Lakeside. You said my name, and something broke through. I started drawing your face compulsively, not even understanding why. That's why she rushed the wedding. She noticed the change, increased my medication. His jaw tightened. But it was too late. Once I remembered you, everything else started coming back. I swallowed the lump in my throat. Christian, you don't owe me anything. You've been through hell. Whatever you need to heal. What I need, he interrupted gently, is to stop losing time. He reached into his pocket and pulled out something that caught the light. The compass pendant I'd given him. The one I'd found in Emma's drawer. You kept it, I whispered. She took it from me, said I'd never had it. He turned it over in his palm. But I remembered. Even when I couldn't remember you, I knew something was missing. Slowly, carefully, he held it out to me. I can't promise I'm the same person you knew. Parts of me might never come back. I took the pendant, feeling its familiar weight. I'm not the same either. No, he agreed, a ghost of a smile touching his lips. You're stronger, fiercer. His eyes held mine. beautiful in ways I'm just beginning to see again. Outside, life continued. Police radios crackled, neighbors gathered to whisper. The sun tracked its path across the sky. But in that kitchen, time seemed suspended between what was lost and what might still be found. I opened my hand, offering the pendant back to him. Maybe we start here, not with who we were, but who we are now. Christian looked at the compass resting in my palm, a small, imperfect thing that had somehow survived intact despite everything. I'd like that, he said, taking it gently. Not a return to the past, but something new. Something chosen with open eyes and hard-won wisdom. As he slipped the chain around his neck, I realized the truth that Emma never understood. Some things, once truly given, can never really be stolen away.